This video is about to get very surgical, so stay with me to the end. Before we even break everything down, I just want to acknowledge Wale for what he created on Everything Is a Lot. This album has a lot on it. No pun intended. Everything is a lot is a lot. You feel what I'm saying? It's got the commercial bangers, but still maintaining the lyricism. It's got poetry within the lyricism, deep life lessons, powerful love songs, toxic love songs. It just really branches the whole totality of what it is to be Wale in his position. And these are the type of projects I love the most, because I think we can get caught up in, we only want to hear strictly positive messages about how everything is great and how you can't rap about being this no more. You can't rap about, no. You should still rap about that all if you are experiencing it, or if you experienced it in the past, because that's going to relate to somebody out there. So don't start doing great and all of a sudden you only rapping about doing great. I disagree with that take. Okay? Wale demonstrated what I think artists should be doing, and that's putting themselves on display. Not saying that you got to say everything, whatever, that's up to you. But displaying even what many will call flaws, what many would say is bad about you and your character. Displaying this to show the world, I know you go through this too, even though you try to, you know what I'm saying? Even though you might try to pretend like you're not, because you're not in this position that I'm in, I know that you probably go through this too. So that's what I really appreciate about this album, okay? Now that we got that out the way, the conversation is the consequence of being avoidant. And a lot of people are avoidant, especially in today's age, because of social media, because of experiences in your personal life that made you not trust or whatever. What we're going to do is break down the avoidant attachment style. And, you know, I love to bring up articles so that I just don't get on here and start ranting. You feel me? This is going to give me a little bit of structure to break some of this stuff down on a personal experience. So after we do that, we're going to then go over to fearful avoidant attachment, right? Then we're going to use the Conundrum verse to really break down the difference and identify where Wale is operating from attachment style in this verse, okay? So an avoidant attachment style is a pattern where individuals steer clear of emotional, let me bring it up, an avoidant attachment style is a pattern where individuals steer clear of emotional closeness and tend to minimize the importance of intimate relationships, often as a way to protect themselves emotionally, right? So this might be something like whenever somebody starts to get close to you, or you start to feel things getting deep, or emotions start to come up, you distance yourself from that individual because they're starting to bring things up in you that you're trying to suppress. That's why relationships are actually the place to go when you want to find out more about you. Like, yes, you do want to be in your own time, in your own space, but there are triggers that will not come up if it's just you. Only another person can bring up certain triggers that you can now address. This is why at times, if, you know what I'm saying, you have been through difficult things and stuff, it can be difficult, more difficult being in a relationship than being single. That's because this person is bringing up triggers in you that you're trying to, keyword, avoid, right? People with this style usually have a skeptical or negative view of others, but maintain a relatively positive view of themselves. They often see others as unreliable or dishonest while believing they are independent, capable, and don't really need support from anyone else. Now, there's nothing wrong with being your own person, doing your own thing. We get that. The problem is, and I just had a conversation about this the other day, the problem is we don't recognize that relationships are probably the most important thing. Actually, no. Relationships are probably the most important thing that you can have. They just got to be the right relationships. That's the reality. And in order to find those right relationships and find people that you can have disagreements with, have issues with, etc., and it still be able to come down to, you know, good conflict resolution, then you can be with those people. But at the same time, relationships that you choose that aren't for you are obviously going to put you in positions that are not aligned with what you really want with your life, right? And the thing about being an avoidant is typically they just push away all these relationships. They might give you enough closeness to where you feel like you're involved, but in reality, they're still in their own world. They still keeping emotion and controlling their environment so that they don't have to feel certain stuff, right? Individuals with this avoidant attachment style often have difficulty forming and maintaining deep emotional connections with others. They may feel uncomfortable with intimacy, fear dependence on others, and strongly desire independence and self-reliance. So you never want to be put in a position where your emotions are being dictated by this individual. Now, obviously, you can get to that state without being avoidant as well, right? But a lot of the times what happens with avoidance is they'll be involved with somebody in a deep connection with them, right? Somebody that really sees them and sees, etc. And it makes them nervous because it's bringing up things they don't want to acknowledge. Even emotions, even love. They might really love this person deeply and passionately, but they're too afraid to get betrayed or get knocked off or get whatever. You feel what I'm saying? So therefore, they don't commit to these relationships or get involved with these relationships, right? This attachment style usually develops as a result of emotional rejection and neglect from primary caregivers in the early childhood. So if your emotions were shut down, for example, if you wasn't allowed to cry, if you wasn't allowed to voice your opinion, if you wasn't allowed to voice why you don't like this situation or something being unfair, how you really feel about things. If those things had to be kept to yourself, if you had to do it on your own, you grow up with that same pattern. Now you thinking, well, nobody cares anyway, so why even bring it up? Or nobody cares enough to even hear what I gotta say, so why talk? Like, these are things, all relationships are going to burn in the end, so why even be in one? Why even be involved in one? This is how attachment styles, avoidance, really think and move. And usually it stems from that being shown to them in their childhood. For these individuals, avoidance and withdrawal become their strategy to protect themselves from experiencing more pain and abandonment, right? Here's something. So boom. You might recognize yourself or someone if you know in thoughts like, I am uncomfortable without close emotional relationships. It is very important for me to feel independent and self-sufficient. I prefer not to depend on others or have others depend on me. That's the avoidance thing. Some people might take this as disrespect. They might take it as not prioritizing people. They might take it as a whole bunch of different ways. But when you move with compassion and with empathy, you really understand some people genuinely just grew up in environments where depending on others doesn't work for them. They couldn't depend on others. So therefore, they don't want the people to fully depend on them. You feel what I'm saying? This is how that goes, right? Typically, adults with this emotional attachment style highly value independence over emotional intimacy. So you'll prefer being on your own before being in a deep relationship, right? Because that is more comfortable for you, right? So here's some emotional experiences as well. Deactivating strategies. Avoiding individuals use strategies that suppress or minimize emotional experience to avoid intimacy and vulnerability, right? So they'll just deactivate or withdraw or disassociate to not be involved in what's going on. Suppressing emotions. They specifically suppress emotions like fear, sadness, anger, and shame, which might trigger attachment needs. These are all things humans feel. So when you put yourself in a position where you don't have to fear those things, you can feel like, oh yeah, this is it. I'm at peace, boom, boom. When in reality, you're just comfortable because you're not being put in position where you have to face yourself, right? Avoiding closeness. Even positive emotions such as happiness can feel threatening because they promote closeness, something avoidant individuals instinctively avoid. Even happiness is difficult for avoidance to feel because happiness usually comes from involvement or understanding or connection with others, right? You can be happy on your own, of course, but other people can bring that happiness within you. It's interpersonal, right? So because you don't want to feel that, you still won't be, you avoid happiness, right? Some people even avoid peace because the trauma wound is that deep. Avoiding peace allows you, because then you can't be in a situation where that peace can be taken away. It's really deep, right? They may ignore or deny painful memories or emotions and struggle to recognize their own emotional states. And then, gaze and attention control. They often avert their gaze and can constantly redirect attention away from emotional or attachment related triggers. So in general, this is what we're talking about here, right? Avoiding attachments. Just reading some of this, when we come to this verse, is going to make more sense. Before we get to that verse, actually, let's go to the verse and then we'll go to fearful attachment. Okay? So here, this is the intro to the album. He comes out the gate. My baby mother told her husband she had to move on. Let me move this camera. My baby mother told her new husband she had to move on. I was like, wow, then nah, then hallelujah, right? So he's in a state where he's oh shit. My fault, hold on. The surgery got a little too surgical. Hold on, reset, okay? So really what he's saying here is, initially, when his baby moms left her husband, right, he was like, wow, then nah, then hallelujah, being grateful for that, right? So this is like his process of being in denial first, like, nah, I can't believe that happened, boom, nah. But then coming to the realization, actually, I'm glad about that, right? She's trying to be a wife, and we've been fighting for too long. That's the price of this life. I pray for guidance and coupons. Yeah, my heart colder than most, because I could love you to death, but still I got to get ghost. Well, essentially what he's saying is here, I can love you so much, but I still got to disappear. Even if I love you, I still got to disappear. A lot of people look at it and say, oh, he's a this and he's a that, boom, boom. We don't know. All we know is an avoidant attachment style can be mistaken for a lot of other different stuff. But people won't know that because people don't really care about getting to know people. A couple of them got close, but when I struggle up top, just know I'm known to get low, right? So when I let people, what he's saying is, when I let people close to me, I let them get close. I'm cool with that. But the second I start to struggle up here, I gotta disappear. And what does that say? Right? Avoiding closeness. Even positive emotions such as happiness can feel threatening because they promote closeness, something avoidant individuals instinctively avoid, right? So essentially, that's what he's saying here. Even in this aspect, when my mind is out of it, as much as I love you, I gotta get out of here, right? My ex, I was in love with her. Passionate sex, but couldn't cuddle her. Tell me, was it lust or did I love her? Her closed off, I'm closed off. Which one is worse, right? He's saying, I'm in love with my ex. When we have sex, I can do it. It's passionate. I can be fully there. I can be connected. I can love this woman, right? But the second we not in that connection, shit just start going on. I start panicking. I start having, you know what I'm saying, ideas of whatever. And now I can't really fully connect. So now I have to, once again, dissipate. I have to move along. And I love the way he put this because he says, I can have passionate sex but can't cuddle her. Meaning, I can have that passionate sex, but after that's done, that closeness, that connection, that aftercare, I can't do that. Because I'm avoiding. I had to avoid those emotions, right? So because I avoided those emotions, now here comes the shame, right? Tell me, was it lust or did I love on her? Her closed off, I'm closed off. Which one is worse? This is the confusion, right? This is the confusion. A couple bars ago, you said, my ex, I was in love with her. So you're clear that you're in love with her, but your own actions confuse you. So now you're not sure if you're in love with her. But in reality, you are in love with her. You're just avoiding. And this is what happens. This is something that is happening in everyday life. I'm sure some of y'all experience it. Some of y'all are avoiding. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. That means that your attachment style and you get to find a way to go heal that and deal with it. That don't mean there's nothing wrong with you. You just got something you're aware of that you can now fix. It's some bread quick. Extend whenever. This is when niggas some bread quick. Do you love me? She tell me I'm selfish. I tell her I'm self-aware. I feel you, baby, but I don't feel nothing. So here, right? He's saying to extend this connection, right? Sex and money is what'll get that done for me. Two things that do not require genuine connection. Money and sex. Two things that do not require genuine connection. Eye contact, aftercare, positive affirmation. You feel what I'm saying? These are all things that you're going to have to connect in order for them to really show you the real benefits and how that grows your relationship. So when you look at it from that perspective, you see that his only cope here to make it go longer, right? This is my perspective, is with money and sex. He then says, she tell me I'm selfish. I tell her I'm self-aware. I feel you, baby, but I don't feel nothing. Meaning, yes, I feel you, but I can't feel. And no, it's not that you don't feel or you can't feel. It's that you don't want to. It's the transition from victim to responsibility, which is what I appreciate. Some people say we should, at this point in hip hop, we should only be rapping from a place of responsibility. I feel that. I do, especially somebody, because that's something that I'm continuously hearing when I'm going to workshops and all different stuff. Operate consistently from responsibility. It'll alter your life forever. Meaning, everything is your responsibility. Everything. But then we still need some victim stuff for the victims out there. And the victim in us. Even when we become I think the point is to make sure there's a good balance of real life. Real life. Actual life. That's why I love this album. Okay? Now that we breaking down the verse, because really only one verse, and really it feel like less than 16 bars. It might just be 16 bars. I don't know, but this song feels so much longer. That's how you know this, you're fire. This song feels so much fire when you're just playing it. Now, let's move on to Fearful Avoidant, right? Because this is a little different, okay? The attachment style you develop in early childhood is thought to have a lifelong influence on your ability to communicate your emotions and needs, how you respond to conflict, and how you form expectations about your relationship. This is why it's key to dive into your childhood, the nuances of your childhood, not just the little shit but the stuff that you forgot, the stuff that you pushed away. You know what I mean? I feel like we all have experienced it, even if you didn't have necessarily. Even if you lived in the burbs and whatever, your family had money and all this different shit. This type of stuff is something we all experience regardless of where you come from. However, it's a lot more likely if you coming from places of low income, because now everyone in that household is not operating from a place of flow. They're operating from a place of survival. Even in my experience, coming from being homeless and not having a consistent place to stay when I was a teenager, going house to house, sleeping at parks, even in the last few years where I've literally put my talents together, etc., to create my own and have a home. Like when I was home, this is the only thing I could think about was having a home, having a room to create and do what I want in, having a kitchen, having all of these things were my deepest imaginations, right? And to just do what I love, right? The reality is, if you're still in that survival, you will do it even when you get this. And that's something I have to continuously check in with myself on as I'm growing, as I'm becoming more mature, as I'm becoming moving into learning and teaching and really becoming a man and maintaining that and learning the nuances of being a man. You feel what I'm saying? This is important to note because when you're in survival, these things are a lot more prominent and a lot more clear. But getting out of survival doesn't mean you left survival fully mentally. And that's something that you can check in and out of. Abundance and survival. But what you want to do is be in abundance in totality, right? But these type of situations bring up fearful avoidance. The fearful avoidant attachment style is also known as disorganized attachment. It's a complex pattern of behavior characterized by both high levels of anxiety and avoidance in relationships, right? So at first, when we first hear this verse, it sounds like it's just avoidant. But when we start to break it down, it sounds more like fearful avoidant. People with fearful avoidant attachment styles crave intimacy and crave the connection, but are simultaneously afraid of getting too close to anyone. This, I think, is a much scarier place to be in, right? As an avoidant, at least you can stand on that principle of I am avoidant, I don't care, blah, blah, right? At least you can stand in that concept. A fearful avoidant, it's constantly in the middle, being pulled this way and being pulled that way, and being pulled this way and being pulled that way. Constantly wanting to be close, but being too afraid to get close. You feel what I'm saying? That is a tough place to be in. Now, when we go back and re-examine these lyrics, it's a little different now, right? I could love you to death, but still I gotta get ghost, right? But when I struggle up top, a couple of them got close, but when I struggle up top, just know I'm known to get low. Goodbye, right? So he wants these things, but it's too hard. It's too hard to maintain them, right? Which eventually leads to self-sabotage. Which is, we're going to have to keep talking about this album because this connects. This is going to be part one. Because this connects to other stuff in the album too. Understand this attachment style can help individuals navigate their relationships more effectively and improve their overall emotional well-being, right? Oh, they even got a model here. Positive model of others, low avoidance. They're secure, right? And anxious attachment on the other side is pushing away, right? The positive model of the avoidant is the low anxiety, right? The negative style of the model is high anxiety. So this is really where you get to the difference between avoidant and fearful and anxious and fearful versus secure. And secure is the top left. That's when you just go in a relationship and everything is going accordingly based on the reality of what's actually happening. Instead of living based on the triggers, you're living on what's happening in front of you. That's a secure attachment style. The perfect place to be in life is in a place where you aren't afraid to be hurt. Even though it probably is going to cost them much, you're going to be in a position where you are living the most free though. And I'm learning as I get older that freedom might be the cost of everything. Then that's possible. But then there's also a world where if you can get these things in order, you can have it all. The freedom while having the love in the relationship. You feel what I'm saying? They display fearful individuals often hold a negative model of self and also a negative model of others, fearing both intimacy and autonomy. Like dismissing avoiding, they often cope with distancing themselves from relationship partners. But unlike dismissing individuals, they continue to experience anxiety and neediness concerning their partner's love, reliability, and trustworthiness. That's fucked. That's tough. And then if you look at it in children, think about back to when you was a kid. The behavior of a fearful, avoidant child is very disorganized, hence is why it's also known as disorganized attachment. If the child and caregiver were to be separated for any amount of time or a union, the child will act conflicted. They may initially run towards their caregiver, but then seem to change their mind and either run away or act out. A child with a fearful, avoidant attachment often desire comfort and closeness with their caregiver, but once close, they act fearful and untrusting. This is exactly how, if you're in a certain household and you grew up a certain way, this things that you used to do as a child, if not corrected, will then grow into who you are as an adult. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm an adult now, so therefore all that shit from when I was a child. No, your inner child is still in you, and it's begging to be fucking acknowledged. It's begging to be let out and played. But the only time we let out and play sometimes is when it's time to, in some negative, you get in an argument, you get in but then that inner child come out. But what about the loving inner child? What about the inner child that want to hug everybody and kiss everybody and trust everybody and waits until they're hurt and all these different stuffs? They are more free. Maybe more vulnerable, but that's the price of freedom, right? So now that we get back into this, it really sounds more like fearful avoidant than avoidant. And that's the thing. It's important to check in with yourself. This feels like what Wale is doing, checking in with himself. I know Wale said he don't believe in therapy somewhere along the album. I can't remember what song it was, but and honestly, I see what he's saying about therapy, but that's why I think workshops are better. I went to the workshop of Live for You in Arizona. I don't know. I'll put the link in the description. If you are in Arizona, if you want to go something like that, be able to face yourself through activities and break through all the bullshit so you can live the life that you want to live. Live for You is a great place to do it if you live in Arizona. I think Live for You is in other states too. But find workshops because you do it with people. It's in community, and yeah, it builds beautiful community. And that's the most important thing in this world right now is community. Okay? But yeah, that's all I really want to talk about. The difference between avoidant attachment and fearful avoidant and how that is showing up in not only this album, but the very first song of the album. That's what I'm saying. But I appreciate y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, especially if you're new here, especially if you've been here. You feel what I'm saying? We getting back into the breakdowns, etc. I'm still combating all propaganda. Don't get it twisted. I'm preparing for a battle, so that's the reason why I ain't been dropping as much content. I'm preparing for a battle, right? But in reality, this is a perfect example of how you got to check in with yourself. Are you avoidant? Are you anxious? Are you fearful avoidant? That way you can understand what the fuck is going on in your friendships and your relationships. Okay? Like, comment, subscribe, especially if you're new, especially if you've been here, Discord, and all that. I'm going to put the Live for You in the description. I'm going to catch y'all, man.